Is it working?
I think. Intrigued is the best way to describe Dillon Gabriel's first start for the Cleveland Browns. We'll react to it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. Grading Dillon Gabriel's first career start, we'll talk about it. I think he at least should leave Browns fans feeling intrigued. Kevin Stefanski's conservative approach works until it doesn't, and the biggest flaw in the Browns' winning formula was exposed in London. I do want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. And we know at this point the results, Cleveland falling to 1-4 on the season with a 21-17 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. And there's a lot to dissect here because it was a frustrating loss, I think, in general, and on a day where the offense, the Kevin Stefanski got the desired result in making this quarterback change. He wanted to change things up to see if he could get a spark for his offense. I think for most of that game today, it worked. 3 scoring drives. They were in this thing till the end. There's probably a couple drives they want back to try to punch in or try to get points on the board. The fourth quarter fumble from the Vikings that led to them not getting any points. You win the turnover battle. The percentages say you should win the game, but they didn't get it done. But what I will say is this: like if you were wondering what Dillon Gabriel was going to look like in the NFL, if you were wondering what this game was going to look like, his first start, all these different things, I think that you should come away feeling intrigued at the very least by what he showed you today on the football field. I thought he was pretty poised overall in running the offense. Seemed like he had a good grasp of what they were trying to accomplish. And I think there's reason to feel like there's a future for him in the NFL. Maybe that's as the Browns starter. Maybe that's as a primary bat. Who knows? Like there's the options are sort of endless there. We're not going to be able to decipher, firmly what his role is going to be in the NFL for years to come. But as Kevin Stefanski made the switch looking to have the offense produce some better results, I think he got those better results today. There was no turnovers. He protected the football. He made some really nice throws at times. I think his best throw of the day was on that last drive before the half, where he layered a perfect pass to David Njoku for 17 yards down the sideline on sort of a smash concept that set up a field goal right before the break to put the Browns up 10-7 going into the half. They hadn't led at the half all season. They finally had a lead going into the half. Like that's not for nothing. He was, like I said, poised. He managed things pretty well. I think Kevin Stefanski did a nice job of being conservative to an extent in making sure that Dillon could be comfortable as the quarterback of this team and executing the offense. We'll talk about later on how I think that came back to bite Kevin Stefanski a little bit. But at the same time, there was a lot to like in Dillon Gabriel's performance today. Was it perfect? No. And I don't know that anybody expected or should have expected a rookie quarterback's debut to be perfect. It's asking a lot. And I honestly, it's rare that anything in football is perfect. There's always things that go wrong, or blocks that are missed, or plays that aren't made that could have turned a game on its head, or turned a game in your favor. So it's not that I thought he was going to be perfect or that he should be perfect. I don't think anybody should have had that expectation. But 19 to 33, a 57.6 completion percentage, not great, but 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. That's, in Kevin Stefanski's offense, that can win. That can win you football games. And it almost won them the football game today. I don't know that, you're not going to be writing headlines about how Dillon Gabriel's the franchise quarterback, but should fans feel, even in defeat, even in a loss, intrigued to see more, or hungry for more, to see what Dillon Gabriel can do as he gets even more comfortable, even more acclimated to the NFL level? Absolutely. Absolutely they should. I think that has to be easily one of the biggest takeaways from this game today, is just how he performed despite the circumstances, how everything sort of came together for him. And he managed a solid offense that was better than what we've seen to this point. Like, if you were looking for competent NFL football on that side of the ball, I think you got that today. Did they come up short a few times? Yes. But I thought Dillon showed some signs of hope that there's something in there. And I don't know, I talked about it on Friday, the idea that if the Browns decide ultimately that they're going to roll with Dillon next year after he starts for however many games this season, that they will have to be judged. Stefanski and company will have to be judged on hitching themselves to that wagon of him as a quarterback, and that being the guy that they're sort of banking on leading them into the future. Right now, we don't have to answer that question, or they don't have to answer that question. It's just kind of an evaluation period for him. But I think he at least passed his first test, even in the loss. And if there's a silver lining in this, it is that, hey, listen, he showed you something, and there's room to be excited about what he could maybe bring to the table here. And if the Browns do decide to go the route of maybe banking on Dillon being the guy in the future, it'll probably be because he only gets better from here, and that's obviously good news. So there's a lot to like, certainly some things to not like. I also think too, though, you saw the reason Kevin Stefanski made this change, and then he spent the better part of the week talking about the change and saying how it's about all of us, and it's not just one person, and we all need to be better. I need to be better. The offensive line needs to be better. The receivers need to be better. He didn't say those groups specifically, but you knew what he meant. He was talking about the offense being all encompassing, and that a quarterback change wasn't going to fix everything. I also think as they lose this game, you saw some of those same reasons why they are a 1-4 football team, and why it wasn't going to be just all be fixed because of Dillon Gabriel. There was some Jerry Jeudy with another costly drop on third down in this football game. Not great. That continues to be an issue. Gabriel, put the ball in a spot where he should catch it. And I guarantee you, Jerry Jeudy would say he should have caught that pass. He continues to have issues with that. It was something that plagued him early in his career. We thought he got it out of his system with his great year last year in Cleveland. Not the case, apparently. And so there's just been a monicum of issues with the receiving core. They're not very talented at the receiver position right now, aside from Jerry Jeudy. And now he's your top guy's letting you down. So that's not very good. The offensive line, while I thought they were better overall today, especially in protecting Dillon Gabriel in this passing attack. And part of that too was Gabriel was able to protect himself better than Joe Flacco could, because he can move around a little bit more. They did get him rolling out a little bit, which was good to see. At the same time, though, the offensive line, while better, still in some key spots, give up a sack on Gabriel, or he got some pressure in his face and he couldn't complete a pass. So there's still some issues that aren't going to just get fixed overnight. Penalties were a problem today. Cam Robinson, who just got here this week, he was kind of rotating with KT Levinston, and he got back-to-back penalties, a false start, and then he was considered illegal formation because he was too far back. You're not allowed to feather so far back anymore these days. They're cracking down on that in the NFL. So that was an issue. So there were still things that didn't go right for this offense beyond just the quarterback position, but certainly there were some things that did go right, and that gave you some signs of hope, and that should make you feel good about, if Gabriel continues to get better, what he can be at the NFL level. And so again, intriguing, I think, is the right word. And you're going to see that intrigue maybe pay off here, or what it looks like as the future continues, because he's your starting quarterback moving forward. Again, it wasn't perfect. He was through a lot of, he sailed a lot of passes. Some of that, I feel like, and here's another point. I think like a lot of the things that didn't go well for Gabriel today are largely correctable. It's, misfires, balls too high, getting on the same page with receivers in certain instances. Those things can correct themselves. And so we'll see how this 13 games that remain and how long Gabriel's part of it plays out. And if he's able to kind of just improve on those things. But listen, intriguing, I think, is the right word, because Gabriel showed you something, I think, today that should make you feel good about him and the state of this offense moving forward. But obviously, there's still a lot of issues just with this Browns team in general. We're going to talk about more of those things, including why I think the final few minutes of this game, Kevin Stefanski's conservative play calling worked until it didn't. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's a local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or a corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. And one of my favorite lunch spots on the east side, the Van Aken Market, yep, it runs on Square. It's one of those places where you walk in and you almost always see somebody that you know. And listen, every time I go, I find myself deciding between multiple food options that I want. And when I finally do make a decision, it's nice to know that I can get cashed out fast and easy thanks to Square. When the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Mazda, moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward was, I think, just in general, I got to highlight Quinshon Judkins. He didn't have a rushing touchdown this week, but 23 attempts, 110 yards, did something that no Browns player has ever done, which we'll get to coming up here in my next segment. I'll tease that while I'm doing this read. That's right. But listen, he was phenomenal yet again for the Cleveland Browns. He's providing a nice bright spot for the future of this franchise at the running back position, even with Nick Chubb no longer here. And when he is out there performing, he certainly moves the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so I talked about Quinshon Judkins and the move the game forward moment there, but also I have to say he was part of what was, I thought, a really, really strong game plan from Kevin Stefanski for about 3.5 quarters today, maybe a little bit more than that, really like 56 minutes of this game. I thought Kevin was calling a perfect game plan, especially with when you're starting a rookie quarterback. He leaned on the run game heavily, which I don't have an issue with. It worked well. Quinshon, 23 carries, 110 yards, 4.8 yards per carry. He became the first Browns player in franchise history, by the way, to average 70 or more, or have 70 or more yards from scrimmage in their first 4 career games that they played. No Browns player has ever done that. Nick Chubb didn't do it, mostly because in his first 4 career games, Hugh Jackson was too afraid to put him out there on the field, and he was kind of a backup, but I digress. Jim Brown never did it. No player ever has done that in Browns history. So that speaks to how great Quinshon Judkins is. And let's face it, like, part of the reason Gabriel, not part of the reason, but the run game being as effective as it was today was another piece of the puzzle as to why I think Gabriel was able to be poised. It took some pressure off of him that they could move the football effectively with the ground game, that they were able to, get chunk plays, stay ahead of the sticks, that Quinshon was so good. He was breaking off some bigger runs today. And you could see, like, it felt like one of those Nick Chubb performances where as the game went on, he was just the bruises and the hits that he was putting on the defense. Like, you felt like he was so close to breaking a big one for a touchdown. He just kept kind of gaining momentum. And that's really been the story for him these first couple weeks that he's played. He just has gained momentum. He's looked better and better and better each and every single week. And it's culminated now in him being this workhorse back and sparking the Browns offense in a really, really meaningful way, just in general. It's been great to see. And I think that is another bright spot that comes out of a loss today. People are probably wondering like why I probably seem very positive in general after a tough loss. And I get it. Like it was a gut wrenching one for fans. I get it. But I think there was a lot to like in this game. And we'll get to some of the disappointment, I think, in the third segment, specifically when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. And also right now, because I think as much as I thought Quinshawn was great and the run game was a weapon for the Browns today, I did think in those closing minutes, Kevin Stefanski's conservativeness ultimately sort of cost the Browns here. He came out of that in that next series. And I get, listen, when you have a limited offense, you're not necessarily going to go for the gusto and try to just like win the game immediately. But they had 3:27 on the clock when they touched the ball. Their last possession, obviously the last possession really came in the final 25 seconds or whatever the hell it was. But their last real meaningful possession when they you had the football with plenty of time came with 3:27 to go in the fourth quarter. They punted the ball 22 seconds later because they could not execute to pick up the first down. And like, to me, that sort of told the story of the game. You get the ball and the Vikings had all three timeouts. So you're trying to either get them to spend all three timeouts or, be aggressive and try to pick up the first down. First run play, they hand the ball off to Quinshawn, he gets -1. Hand the ball to Quinshawn again, he gets no gain. And then it's 3rd and 11 and you're sort of forced to throw, and Gabriel can't get Isaiah Bond on a sort of out route. Or I guess it was more of like a crossing route, and 3rd and 11, incompletion, clock stops. You let the Vikings not only save a timeout, but you didn't pick up the first down and sort of milk this game just in general and try to go win it. I guess it's a double-edged sword, because if you go for it and you fail, of course, Kevin Stefanski is getting ripped afterwards for going for it. If you are play a conservative like you did and you don't get it, then, but maybe you at least let them burn the timeouts. Like maybe that impacts the game. But if you still lose, then it's like, well, why didn't you go for it? So you're going to be critical no matter what. I guess in my mind, I feel like I like a coach going for it more and being aggressive, because I'd rather you try to win it with your guys while your offense is on the field rather than punt it and let them be the ones kind of deciding their own fate. Now, granted, Browns defense is so good. I understand trusting them too. And you sort of trusted them in that spot, which is, I think, another big thing we have to get to. And they failed you. But at the same time, like, I just thought like the conservative play calling was perfect. It was exactly what you wanted from this game. You were set up to win, and then it cost you in a key spot because you just weren't aggressive enough. And I think that's notable. Again, people are always critical of Kevin Stefanski's play calling. I think that moment certainly maybe warrants it to a degree. I understand what he's thinking. His offense is very limited just in general. He wasn't trying to do too much. He wasn't trying to put Dillon Gabriel in a tough spot and force him to sort of make a play. But then you kind of did that anyway, because it was 3rd and 11 and you let him throw the football. If you were already committed to that point, you should have at least just run it, or run an easy pass play like a screen or something that was going to be an easy completion, so the clock was going to keep running and they'd have to spend their third time out, and that at least helps you to a degree. It's a weird situation. I get it. There's no right answer in a lot of ways, but I think I would have preferred being a little more aggressive there, and it just kind of the conservative play calling ended up ultimately backfiring in his face, and it cost the Browns in the end. Again, 3:27, you eat up 22 seconds and give the ball back to the Vikings, and then they go down and march down the field on that fourth quarter drive to win the football game 21-17. It's just frustrating. And so, listen, I especially in a game like this where you got Kevin O'Connell and you got Kevin Stefanski, he's going to be measured by how he does against these other offensive minds that he's compared to. And I think today, Kevin McConnell in the key moments of games was just, I think, better. And also, like, yeah, he's got guys he can probably trust a little bit more. He wasn't afraid to let Carson Wentz go out and try to win this football game, and he made some really big throws down the stretch. Dillon Gabriel, in trying to sort of protect him, I think it sort of cost this Browns offense at the end of the game there. And so that's part of the reason why they lose today too. I know that won't sit well with people. I already see people in the comments talking about Kevin and not having enough explosive plays and all those different things. I think some of that hopefully comes with the run game picking up the pace and looking better. But obviously we need to see that continue, and we need to see them start to push it down the field, because part of the reason they drafted Dillon Gabriel and they've been so high on him is that they felt he can make all the throws. So those things should come. Those things hopefully will come. But yeah, right now I get some of the criticism of Kevin Stefanski, and I thought his game plan was perfect today up until that final 3:27 when the conservativeness ultimately gives the ball back to the Vikings in short order, and then they go down the field and win it. Speaking of that, the defense was pretty standard today, except in the key spots in games. And that's ultimately what cost the Browns. Plus, we got an explanation from Denzel Ward on what happened on the Vikings game-winning touchdown pass. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium I apologize. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making it more exciting than ever to make sure that you enjoy yourself on Sundays. FanDuel is offering you right now, when you play your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you will get $300. That's right, $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And what the best thing about FanDuel for me is that, listen, if it's the best way to follow along with the NFL season just in general, because there's platforms and ways that you can bet for whatever type of bettor that you might be. Maybe you're somebody who likes to bet on a player hitting a certain benchmark in a game. Maybe you want to take that benchmark, combine it with a few others, and maybe even throw a money line on it and build a same game parlay. Or you can just play a money line in real time live as the action unfolds in front of you on any given Sunday. It's fast. It's easy. You can cash out immediately once your bet wins. And like I said, when you're following the NFL season, whether it's your team or not, it's the best way to stay involved and be excited from game to game to week to week. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started by placing that first $5 bet. All right, so I do think that in general today, the defense was largely dominant in long stretches of this game, especially in the first half. Second half, I thought in the third quarter they got back to being vintage, the vintage defense that we've seen so often throughout this season, and they were doing some really nice things. You saw the sack by Malik Collins in a key spot late in this game. You saw both Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire get after the quarterback, and each of them force a fumble as that duo continues to just be the perfect complement opposite of Myles Garrett. And that played itself out today. 2 turnovers, you win the turnover battle. There was a lot to like on the defensive side of the ball in general, aside from they were getting gouged at times. And that was one of the reasons why I think this was their worst performance of the day. You just didn't see those things the first several games of the season where guys were breaking off big run plays or big pass plays, or like the chunk plays were there today for the Vikings with a banged up offensive line and a team that you thought you were going to be able to sort of control because the Browns defense is so good. That wasn't the case today. You know, they sort of exploited some things, and I think there were some concerns there, at least in a 1-game sample size that I'm sure fans didn't like, and I certainly noticed as well. So that wasn't it was the worst defensive performance I think of the season. And I understand people can point to the scoreboard and say, well, hey, they only give it 21 points. The offense needs to be better. Yes, the offense probably should have scored more. They still haven't scored 20 points since week 13 of last year. But at the same time, like those other games where the team scored more, we have to remember context here. There was a lot of turnovers from the Browns, a lot of short fields that the defense had to defend. In this instance, that wasn't the case. There was no turnovers. The offense played a very clean football game, and the Browns defense had to defend a lot of long fields. And so that's where I say, like, in key moments in this game is where I think I found myself the most disappointed with the Browns defense. First, it was the offense goes down, scores a touchdown. You're defending a lead they haven't done that a lot this year, had to defend leads in football games, and the Vikings come out the very next possession. They go down the field, they score a touchdown, and they tie the game up. Like it's those things that you wish you would have seen the Browns give you something better and make it sort of more the defense be better and sort of stand their ground and keep the Vikings off the scoreboard so that maybe you get a 3-and-out and then you get the ball back to the offense and the momentum sort of stays in your favor. Like that was a key spot. And then of course the biggest one of all is the final stretch of the game, that moment after they punted the ball back after 3:27, only killed 22 seconds, 3:05, Vikings start the drive, they go down, they score the touchdown, and they leave just 25 seconds for the Browns when it's all said and done that they can do nothing with. That drive was just deflating for a lot of different reasons. Again, some of the chunk plays, Carson Wentz orchestrating this game-winning drive down the field with a banged-up offensive line, all those things. They just couldn't quite make enough plays. And then, of course, the dagger to – by the way, one of the plays, Justin Jefferson just snagging a ball over Denzel Ward. Sometimes that just happens. It's best player on best player, and great players are going to make great plays in this league. I thought that was sort of a fun cat and mouse to watch this game, was Denzel Ward versus him, and him even versus Greg Newsome. And even when the Browns defense was tight on him, he still made some plays in this game and made a major impact because he's Justin Jefferson. I don't fault the defense for that to a degree because, great players, like I said, are going to make great plays. But the dagger at the end is just the throw to Jordan Addison. He gets outside of Denzel Ward, catches the touchdown pass, and that's the decisive blow that wins the game for the Vikings. Denzel talked after the game, and I always try to be respectful of who's doing what on certain plays because I don't know the coverage or the call, but it looked like cover 2. Sounded like Denzel Ward basically confirmed that it was cover 2, and he said he needed to force Addison inside because basically Hickman's over the top trying to run to the corner and get over there in coverage. He has a whole half of the field on the back end, and that's a long run for him to make to try to get to cover Addison. I think also Ward maybe thought like Wentz wasn't going to be able to make that throw. Maybe he could pick it off. And so he sort of sunk underneath it a little bit, but let Jordan Addison get outside. And then Wentz just delivered a perfect throw. I thought Wentz in spots today looked like the MVP version of himself from 2019. That would have probably won the MVP if he stayed healthy that year. It was just an unfortunate way for that game to end. Denzel giving you the context of what happened there and owning it. You appreciate a guy taking accountability for that. And I didn't want to put it on him until I really knew what was going on, but he did take the blame for that after the game. So I think that's notable. But again, a key moment where the defense just let you down. And this is why there's a flaw in the machine here, which we already knew. We knew this Browns team was very imperfect, but when your formula for winning depends on the offense or the defense rather, playing nearly perfect every single game, at some point that's going to come back to bite you. Like, for the first 4 weeks, the Browns defense was largely the reason they were even in those games. This week, they still kept you in it, and you could have used a little bit more from the offense. But at the same time, like the defense in the biggest moments of the game just sort of flopped a little bit, and that's the problem. Like week to week, defenses can be different and exploited as more film gets put out there. Sometimes different teams can exploit things. That's the whole point of football. Is like each week you're finding different matchups that might work for you based on your personnel. And the Vikings found some and took advantage. I'm not. You also got to remember too, like this is a week where the team flies over to London, probably some tiredness, adjusting to the time zones and all those things. So it's I think there's reasons for why the defense maybe lacked a little bit today. But when you're banking on the defense being nearly perfect every week, at some point it's going to come back to bite you a little bit. And I think we saw that today because they couldn't hold a team under 20 points when you needed them to hold a team under 20 points. It's unfortunate. But that's life when that's your winning formula, because week to week defenses can be so different. Year to year defenses can be so different. And, this was a week where they just weren't totally perfect, and the Browns fall because of it. So disappointed on that side of the ball a little bit, but also you realize and recognize what they've brought to the table to even give the Browns shots at winning through these first 4 to 5 weeks. That, it's taken such a Herculean effort. You're not really all that upset at them in the grand scheme of things. But today, it was a frustrating performance on that side of the ball that we're not necessarily accustomed to seeing because they've been so good otherwise. All right, well, that's going to do it for another episode of the Locked On Browns podcast. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. Obviously doing this a little earlier than usual because of the morning, the early game over in London. But I can tell you, I will have a second reaction episode for you coming up on Monday as I dive a little deeper into Dillon Gabriel's performance and talk about some of the other things that were maybe said after the game and whatnot. So please, if you like what you heard, hit that subscribe button, make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, because I'll have plenty more for you this week. Of course, for your second listen, you can get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast with Tyler, the Madman Roland, giving you a shot of espresso to start your day. Tony Wiggins has the barbershop with the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. You can find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I always like to remind you to keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being on every day or at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you again tomorrow, Cleveland. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.